Mr. Yip Han Weng.
Madam Deputy Speaker, employment is a critical part of an ex-offender's integration journey into society. As such, the Employment Preparation Scheme, or EMPS, is a step in the right direction. Besides rehabilitating them, it also helps to raise inmates' employability in line with our national upskilling endeavours. This new pool of trained employees will help to alleviate manpower shortages. I would like to raise 4 suggestions. First, Madam Deputy Speaker, there's a need to ensure participation from genuine employers for the program to succeed. Potential employers should meet certain conditions or provide a specific training plan and remuneration schedule to the Singapore Prison Service or SPS. Will there also be an appropriate industry body that accredits and matches potential employers? Ideally, these employers should meet relevant criteria or have a track record for rehabilitating and hiring ex-offenders. On the other hand, if the demands and requirements imposed on potential employers are too onerous, employers are unlikely to take part. It is important to establish a balance between the interests of employers and the participating ex-offenders. New Zealand's Release to Work program requires potential employers to satisfy a set of criteria before they can be considered for placement with inmates undergoing rehabilitation. A myriad of factors will be taken into account to ensure a good match between the workplace and the employee. Briefings and ongoing support for employers and staff are provided before and during the placement. Will the Ministry or SPS likewise conduct similar placement assessments? Besides the employers, are the employees aware that they will be working with an inmate? Can employers count on our program administrators for clear regulations and reliable support? Support can also come in the form of training for employers and managers on working with ex-offenders. Ex-offenders tend to carry emotional baggage and carry a stigma. Some believe that they are constantly being judged. Unpleasant events, like being criticized by their supervisor or customer, can trigger adverse reactions or discourage them. Employers should have timely access to support from prison counsellors to help with such situations. Employers who abuse the system or refuse to abide by the regulations are a potential concern. There are always errant employers who exploit the schemes. They may join the program to benefit from the grants or positive publicity. On the flip side, they may not have a proper training plan or work arrangement for the participants. A first poor employment experience can be disheartening for inmates. It deprives them of a valuable integration opportunity. So there should be regulations and penalties for errant employers. Can the Ministry also clarify whether remuneration for inmates will be managed by SPS, or will remuneration be paid by the employers to the inmate directly? Does SPS allocate the upskilling and training opportunities, or do eligible participants have to source for the opportunities themselves? Are there plans to engage more employers to come on board? Will the expansion of the program, how will the additional costs and resources be defrayed? Madam Deputy Speaker, my second point is to request that prohibitions for EMPS participants be clearly specified. For EMPS to be successful, exemplary discipline of the participant inmate is important. I'm glad that the bill has drawn up very detailed conditions of the employment preparation order. With regards to Clause 59M2, the prohibitions in the said clause do not explicitly mention vice activities aside from drugs and alcohol. As a matter of deterrence, besides including the residual discretion of the Commissioner of Prisons to include conditions as the Commissioner deemed fit, it should be explicitly stated what participants are prohibited from doing. This is because some employers worry about vice and problematic behaviour, such as gangsterism and gambling amongst ex-offenders. This is especially if the participant inmates were formerly convicted of the said crimes. Having this clause will help allay their concerns. This is not to stigmatise the inmates, but to provide clarity and assurance to all involved parties. Madam Deputy Speaker, my third point is about allaying concerns from the public and minimising stigma from EMPS participants. Where Singaporeans in general approve of second chances for ex-offenders who are rehabilitated, the not in my backyard syndrome, or NIMBY, can be apparent in this case. while some agree on the need to train and rehabilitate ex-offenders into society, that does not necessarily translate into willingness of oneself to attend classes or to work in the same workplace with them. So I seek clarification on whether participating inmates will attend classes together with the public. If so, will there be ways to remove identifiers associated with the participating inmates, such as not requiring the wearing of prison attire or wearing electronic tracking devices at the spots where it is not visible? Can the government also clarify on the type of inmates who are eligible for EMPS? Do they include serious offences already set out in the second schedule of the Prisons Act, Cap 247, like drug trafficking, culpable homicide not amounting to murder, or sexual offences and other violent crimes? I understand that all eligible inmates will be assessed by the SPS for their suitability for the program. There will be an independent advisory committee appointed by MHA to review the cases and make recommendations to the Commissioner. I believe that the eligible candidates would have proven themselves worthy. Nonetheless, can the Ministry assure the public that there is no risk of the inmate offending or causing harm while on EMPS? What steps will the Ministry take to mitigate such risks? Sometimes, a person's discrimination against others can stem from past trauma. For example, a former victim of sexual assault with post-traumatic stress disorder may feel unsafe to spend time in the same space as a convicted sex offender. This fear should be taken into consideration. This further drives the point of the difficulty and necessity to balance the needs of the public. De-identifying EAPS participants gives them a fair chance at rehabilitation to prove themselves without societal stigma. Correspondingly, how will the Ministry seek to protect the needs of victims of crime and to navigate situations whereby halfway through the EMPS, a co-worker or classmate rejects the presence of the participating inmates? Madam Deputy Speaker, my last suggestion is to review the grace period for an inmate to receive punishment while serving their sentence. Can the Ministry share how many cases of deferment to conduct punishments have occurred in the past? Is it not better to adjust the grace period so the prisoner receives the punishment during his incarceration rather than extend his sentence? It is understood that such prisoners often have a grace period and their sentences are backdated, so there's no time to deal with the punishment where they serve their sentence. However, durations of appeal can prolong the process, such that 21 days may not even be adequate. Madam Deputy Speaker, in conclusion, I've met Yio Chu Kang residents at my Meet the People session who are ex-offenders. Employment and job search are top pain points for these residents. Wariness from employers, discrimination from the public, and a lack of suitable skills are the key hurdles. The expanded EMPS will address some of these issues. For it to be more effective and benefit more inmates, it needs to attract genuine employers who are keen to help ex-offenders and at the same time employ them to grow their businesses. This can be done with a proper framework that formalizes their obligations and access to support from SPS. It should clarify the prohibitions of participants under the EMPS, who should serve as deterrents and give employers added assurance of good behavior. It should also take into consideration concerns from the public and minimize prejudice to give inmates a chance to prove themselves. As we onboard more eligible employers and workplaces, I'm hopeful that this will help increase the acceptance of ex-offenders into our society. I support the bill.